Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! INDY! A 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up, got it! And Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, everybody. Welcome aboard. Thanks a lot for being with us here on this Monday, January 15. Jim Coyle with you as always. And we have a great lineup as we start this Monday, new week. John Boy with us, of course, keeping us between the white lines. John, the producer, on the lineup today.
We should be getting a visit from Greg Rakestraw here shortly, and then, regardless of whether he's here or not, we'll also hear from Don Fischer, Dustin Dopirak, and maybe a little bit of Mike Woodson and the players from this.
Absolutely. Yep. As Indiana gets a win over Minnesota at home, we'll talk about that as they head into the biggest game of the year for them tomorrow night at home against Purdue. So there's a lot going on. The Indiana women, basically, they got their ass kicked in Iowa City. And this team is so different than last year's team without Grace Berger. It's amazing the difference that she actually ended up making. There are two losses. Indiana's got a good squad, but their two losses have come by at an average of 30 points to top 10 teams, which just shows you, unfortunately, they're just not in that top echelon right now. And it is what it is. They're still a great team, but they're not in that top echelon. So they get pummeled in Iowa City by Caitlin Clark and crew by I forget the final score, but it was a lot. But there's that. Indiana men taking on Purdue tomorrow night, coming off of a win at home against Minnesota. Like I said, we'll talk about that. New Iowa football coach Kalen DeBoer. Not only just that, but the trigger, the avalanche that followed, the ripple, which there's always a ripple, but this ripple seems to be even a little bigger, John. He goes to Alabama. Ryan Grubb was expected by people like me to become the new coach at Washington. The offensive
and I was in that camp as well. Yeah.
And I thought that was just going to be a natural thing. And I think he thought that, as a matter of fact. And what he was told, he was not going to become the coach. Saturday, he tweeted out that he was going to be leaving the program. That tells me, at least, he expected to be named the new head coach, because no other coach sent out a tweet saying I'm leaving the program. And that he hated it and this, that, and the other thing, because he said he wanted the job. And so he was highly disappointed that he didn't get it. And I have to be honest with you, I'm a little surprised.
I got to say too, and I know he's going to be the offensive coordinator at Alabama, but it surprises me that he's unable to find another head coaching job that's open that may suit what he wants. And maybe there isn't much left for him and I know the opportunity at Alabama is also great, and you get to still work with Kalen DeBoer, and that'll be another great way to hone your skills, if you will. But it kind of surprises me that he's not getting a head coaching job elsewhere, even though he really wanted the Washington position.
Well, I don't know that anyone really offered him, because I think a lot of people thought that he was going to end up at Washington's head coach, and that didn't happen. And so because of timing, you don't have time really to do anything else.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that it did happen quickly, because then what I expected is going to happen. He's going to go to Alabama to become the offensive coordinator there, which, by the way, he was offered the job by Nick Saban the year before, FYI, people. So this is not just he's not falling into this. Alabama wanted him before. He was offered the job last year, but he will be the offensive coordinator at Alabama. And what a change that's going to make down there, not only at Alabama, but in the SEC. There is not a team in the SEC, save maybe Lane Kiffin and Mississippi State.
Ole Miss, yep.
At Ole Miss, that really, kind of throws the ball all over the place, which is starting to make the SEC a little more diversified. You think that the SEC is one style, and that's starting to get diversified. But not only will Ryan Grubb be following Kalen DeBoer, Nick Sheridan is going to be going to Alabama. You already have the strength and conditioning coach at Alabama, who was from Indiana originally.
That's right. David Ballou, I believe, is who that was.
Yep. David Ballou is still there and will remain there. So the Indiana connection that is out of Alabama now is kind of crazy. William Inns might follow him there as well, who left Indiana to go with Kalen DeBoer back then. So there's that.
I don't know if you're ready to move on from Washington, but the one thing I've thought about is expectations. I feel like no matter who the head coach was going to be for Alabama, fans are going to have to temper them just a little bit, because no matter who you got, you're not getting Nick Saban back. And I'm not saying that Kalen DeBoer is going to be a swing and a miss at all. But I think no matter who it was, and just so happens to be Kalen DeBoer, at the very least in year one, to please the ever-hungry fan base of Alabama, I think you at least have to be in the 12-team playoff. I mean, maybe that's shooting the bar too low for someone like Alabama.
I have no doubt that they'll be in the playoff.
And I would agree with you, but here's the thing. If you don't, that's uncharted territory for Alabama. And maybe it seems like it should be that easy for anyone to be the head coach of Alabama and do that. You never know. And I'm not saying he has the inability to do so, but to at least show the Alabama fans that you are going to continue.
What is the one thing Kalen DeBoer has done?
Oh, he wins. But here's the thing: you can win and miss the playoff. You can be 9-3 and be the 13th or 14th.
That's not winning. That's not winning. That's
not winning according to Alabama.
Exactly.
But my point is, I'm not saying he's going to fail. Level. I think he will succeed, but there's a threshold that people will expect him to win championships eventually. I don't think he has to win the national title next year to be considered the successor or successful successor to Nick Saban. But at the very least, he has to show them that they're going to be. They have to be in the hunt. Absolutely.
Well, I don't expect them not to be. They get their quarterback is back. So I think that will be fine. But the ripple effect I want to talk about with Kalen DeBoer's move, it ended up with a new contract for Steve Sarkisian. Probably was already in the works, but expedited because he was a candidate for the Texas job. Norvell at Florida State, he got an extension, who was rumored for the job. Lance Leipold, who was rumored for the Kansas job, gets an extension. Ryan Grubb, who many thought was going to be the Washington head coach, is going to end up at Alabama. He's going to get a higher contract. Jeff Fish at Arizona, who will move to Washington, is going to get a much bigger contract. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's at least 5 people who have benefited. Well, there's more than that because I'm counting Grubb in that. But those 5 alone have benefited immensely from the move of Kalen DeBoer going to Alabama. That's the ripple effect that it has caused. So Crazy how that goes. Lots more to talk about today. So I mentioned Indiana women losing over the weekend to Iowa at Iowa, 84-57. I mean, just a thrashing. Indiana men's basketball coming off of a win over Minnesota, but now they go into probably the toughest game of the toughest conference game of the season, no doubt, but the toughest home game that they've had since Kansas, as Purdue will come in here. We'll see what they're going to be ranked by the time they actually get here, because the new poll will come out. Either way, that's going to be a challenge for Indiana, especially with where they are and because of their schedule coming up afterwards. You know, they have to travel. You've got to play Illinois and, daggone it, forget the other team.
Wisconsin. And Wisconsin will be
Wisconsin.
sandwiched in between both games.
Is Wisconsin and Illinois both on the road?
It is. So Indiana will have Purdue at home this week, and then this weekend you'll have Wisconsin on the road, and you'll have an 8-day break before you travel to Illinois to face them.
Which is good. Illinois just got beat at home, by the way.
They did by a Maryland team that is very mediocre, to say the least.
On the road, that is not only mediocre, but they're horrible on the road.
That's true. That's right. Kevin Willard's been known to
games on the road. And they were in charge of that game from start to finish. I watched it, and they ended that game well. And that's a solid win. As a matter of fact, it's the best road win in the Big Ten. As a matter of fact, I think it's the first road win or road loss by any of the top 7 teams in the Big Ten.
You know, Purdue lost Northwestern back in November, but since
that was
then,
not at home, was it? That was not
We're
at
talking
home.
about home loss. Excuse me.
Yes,
that's probably
that
correct.
is the first home loss by any team in the top 7 of the Big Ten. Everybody had protected home. I think it was like I forget. It was in the teens, maybe 18-0 mark by Big Ten teams at home. So that's the first home loss. Indiana up on the clock next as they host Purdue tomorrow night. So you can see how important those home wins are. So
Purdue, I know we're going to need to break here for Don Fischer here in just a second, but is Purdue hasn't played since they lost to Nebraska. Am I correct? Or did they have a game since then?
You know what? I don't recall one. I'd have to look at their schedule.
And this may be one of their long breaks. You get 2 per season now with the way that the Big Ten is set up. But either way, we'll talk more about that.
I expect UConn to be number 1. I think they're the best team in the country anyway, Russell. But when the new poll comes out, we'll certainly see. Something else that I tweeted about a couple of days ago. ESPN won dozens of Emmys for people that did not exist. There are rules on the Emmys, and like if a show wins, it's for like the producer and so-and-so. It's not for the on-air talent. Well, ESPN would submit names of people involved with the show that were like Ken Henry. That's actually Kirk Herbstreit. Lee Clark, which was actually Lee Corso, et cetera, et cetera. All of these different on-air talents. Samantha Ponder was Steve Ponder. I forget them all, but all of these guys, and then they would re-engrave the trophy and give it to these people. I'm like, are you kidding me? That the depth that they went for that is crazy. And this happened over a period potentially as far back as 95, but at least from 2010. Go back and look at that. That's just kind of a crazy story. So there's that. But We've got lots more to get to. The voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fischer, up with us next. Dustin Dopirak along as well later on. But we'll be back with Don Fischer right after this break. Brought to you by, of course, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, powered by Andy Moore Honda. More coming to you right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
Good morning, Don.
Hey, John, how are you?
We're doing well.
Good morning, sir. How are you doing today?
Good, Jim. Hold
No
on.
show tonight, right?
Oh, we have a show tonight.
I thought tonight was
We're,
Martin
It's
Luther
the
King Day.
pre-recorded show.
we're taped.
Oh,
taped.
that's
Yeah, I'm going to have an interesting show tonight. We got
an interest.
it's taped, and it's taped with Woody on the first half of the show and Kurt Signetti on the second half.
Nice. This will be your first show with Signetti?
Yeah. I actually had an opportunity to interview him on Saturday. First time I'd met him.
Okay.
Because he's been busy so much, and I wasn't going to bother him. And I've been busy too, and I'm old, so I don't get around much. But yeah, it's first opportunity. I love the guy. I absolutely love him. I think he is special. I haven't been this excited about a football coach at Indiana since Terry Hepner. And
Wow.
that's saying something, because Terry Hepner was my man.
Special guy. He was a special guy.
Absolutely. How much time we got?
About minute 45.
All right, I'll be right back.
I'll remove him.
Haven't seen Don move that fast in a minute.
I'll just keep an eye on his screen.
Damn it. Where's my mouse? Here we go.
Russell said 1 minute 45-second bathroom break.
Here we go. Here we go.
All right, I'll go and pull him back in.
I should have had you get some sound. Well, I'll talk to you later.
I'll try to make sure we have some whenever, because we'll have a few open segments to end the show.
Yeah, I'll talk about that later.
Okay, sounds good. All righty, guys. Got about 30 seconds. I'll go ahead and pull us back in from break.
Shop for high-quality meats, bakery items, and now fresh seafood. Chop Shop Market and Table has the largest selection of in-house made products around and everything you need to make a gourmet meal at home. Or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by the Chop Shop, home of the Indiana football and men's basketball coaches shows. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back on this Monday, January 15th. Thank you so much for being with us. Happy Martin Luther King Day. As the world celebrates that, or at least the country celebrates that. Don Fischer, the voice of the Indiana Hoosiers, with us as the Hoosiers prepare for probably their biggest game of the season tomorrow night at home against Purdue, as the Boilers will come in, coming off of not a great week for them. They take an L, but they're going to be looking to get on the other side. Plenty of things to get to. Don, how are you, sir? How was your weekend?
It was cold. It was fine, but it was cold. No question about that. At the same time, it was busy because I had to do some taping this weekend because of the holiday coming up today, Martin Luther King holiday, which we're going to have our first talk show with Coach Woodson since back on December the 18th. So it's been a while, almost a month since we had our last talk show. So we'll have a chance to talk to the coach for the first half hour of the show then, and a special guest tonight on the second half of the show, because we taped an interview with Curt Cignetti, the new Indiana football coach, who is just a tremendous person, a guy I really enjoyed talking to. First in-depth interview with him, and I think you'll really enjoy what you hear.
Yeah, before we get to Coach Woodson, your first time to sit down with Curt Cignetti, and he is obviously someone that has brought a level of excitement to the fans of Indiana football that I personally have not seen. You know, when I was in school during the Mel Mallory era, which it was really fun. Indiana was competitive then, but from a fan standpoint, from then being a student, being in the media, I have not seen this level of excitement since then, or even more so. I mean, the anticipation is there, and it's not to go 12-0. It's just to have a successful program. And they all seem to believe in what Cignetti is saying and about, even though there's not been a snap yet. But his moxie, I guess you could say. And I think that's something Indiana needs, even though it's not deserved because of of the past, but they need that. They need someone who has that, and he certainly seems to possess that in abundance.
He believes in his system. He absolutely has the utmost confidence. He's done this rebuild, is what he calls it, twice before. And he's taken over programs that have not been very good for several years leading up to the point where he's taken over. And he's developed this system. And without question, yeah, he's like every coach. They make mistakes just like everybody else does. But his system works. And one of the key things he talked about and that he stated, and he just kind of glossed over it briefly, and then I pulled him back into the conversation about it, is development. You have to develop players at Indiana. You're not going to get the 5-star guys and all that kind of stuff at IU because of the tradition or the lack of tradition for football. So you've got to be able to build guys. And that's what Bill Mallory did when he came to Indiana University. He developed players. He got the 2- and the 3-star guys to become 4-star guys by the time that they were starting to play for him on a consistent basis. You have to develop players. And I think that's the critical aspect of what he brings to the table that will make him a success at Indiana University. I don't think there's a lot of question about that.
No, he's already had a ton of players follow him, and even though most of them are what you would call high mid-majors, it doesn't matter. There's just a belief. You cannot have that many come that when there's just not a belief.
Right.
And it's clear that those guys believe in what he's doing, especially the 9 that came from JMU. That's a high number. So they obviously believe in what he's doing. And it just seems that Indiana is on the right trajectory, at least. Even though like I said, there hasn't been a snap. I get that. I just think that first of all, the belief, there's not going to be a quarterback controversy going into next year. That's one thing I'll guarantee you. Obviously, I think Curtis Rhodes is going to be the starter. It's why he's here. But regardless of that, there will be a decision made before the first game without question.
Well, and here's the other thing. When you're a head football coach, you've been someplace before, and you bring, I think 6 of his staff from that school. You hit the ground running. You don't have to coach coaches. You're literally hitting the ground running with your program. And he's got 3 or 4 new coaches on his staff that are not guys that he has coached or that he has worked with prior to this. And maybe he has worked with a couple of these guys elsewhere. I don't know. All I'm telling you is that this guy has hit the ground running. He has brought an excitement level and a buzz to Indiana football for the first time in my mind since Terry Hepner. And without question, this guy knows what he wants to do. He knows how to do it. And we'll see exactly if that comes to fruition as far as wins and losses are concerned. And my gut feeling is that Indiana is going to have a season better than anybody anticipates.
Oh, I expect them to make a bowl game at a minimum. I don't know. It's a tough schedule, without question. You've got not one, but both teams that played in the national championship on your schedule. There's not a lot of teams that can say that, Don.
Well, the one good thing about Washington being the team that does come to Bloomington is that they won't have Kalen DeBoer anymore. They won't have Michael Penix anymore. They got a bunch of other guys that'll be gone, and they got a new coach. So they're going to be under a new system. They may be ripe for the picking.
And you know what? That's the first thing I thought. I did. Seriously, when all this went down with Kalen, I'm like, you know what? That just changed things for Indiana, because that was an L for me on the schedule. I'm like, that's a loss. Well, that changes things. Not that Washington's just going to fall into oblivion, but when you have a change, it makes a difference, especially when you're losing the players that they're not going to have Roma Dunze or Michael Penix of those guys. So
right.
Yeah, it will be a huge difference. And now that turns into a different scenario because it's a home game.
Yeah, there's no question. But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
No.
There'll be a lot of work to do before then. But I do think that this new coaching staff, the players that they brought in, and they brought in 10 JMU players, incidentally, 10.
10.
Including the best wide receiver of that program, which was a really good get in that sense. But those 10 guys will also form the nucleus of the leadership on this new program because, again, they know the system. They understand what the coach is looking for. And the one thing that he talked about in our interview, he said, we're not going to be soft. We're not going to be a soft football team. We're going to be a tough football team.
Well, he tweeted that out, Don, that he is stalking softness to eradicate it.
Exactly.
And just to hear that, to see him tweet that kind of stuff out, that's also being embraced.
Yep.
On the other side of things, on the hardwood, Indiana basketball tomorrow night, their toughest test to date, even though I know they've played UConn, I know they played Kansas. They've got a home game against one of the top teams in the country and the best team in the conference, Purdue, coming in with Mount Edie and all of that. This is a very, very important game. Purdue has been shown to be human, beatable. Nebraska beat them at home, and now Indiana is on the clock with an opportunity to pick up their first signature win of the season, potentially.
Well, let's look at it from another perspective. Purdue got beat by Indiana twice last year. So they are going to come in here with a chip on their shoulder, even though they've lost 2 ball games in Big Ten play. The most recent, of course, to Nebraska, a team that beat Indiana. So my gut feeling is that Purdue is going to come in and they are going to be on a mission in this matchup with Indiana. On the other side of it, Indiana knows that they play their best basketball at home. They certainly have done that thus far this year. That's not necessarily the thing that you want to hear, because you want to be able to play your best basketball no matter where you play, home or road. But that said, we will see a crowd that will help this Indiana basketball team tomorrow night. Purdue is terrific. They have all the tools to win a national championship. There's no question. But Indiana has proven when you come to Assembly Hall and it's a game of this magnitude, things can get changed pretty quickly. And we will see if Indiana can manage this situation in the right way, because they're going to need all hands on deck in this ball game if they're going to beat the Purdue Boilermakers tomorrow night.
Absolutely. Not only that, they're going to have to get maybe some things they haven't had, and that is great play on the interior as well as from the perimeter. And the perimeter has been kind of an issue for Indiana. They're going to have to get scoring. They're going to have to get solid guard play. Gabe Cupps has been solid as a player, but offensively does not contribute much. And the up and down play of Xavier that's been an issue of late. So they're going to have to trade Galloway. They're going to have to get some perimeter help to win this game without question.
Well, if Trey Galloway plays like he did against Minnesota, that's what you need. I mean, Trey Galloway was tremendous in that ball game. 7 assists. He was 4 or 5 from the field, 2 or 3 from the 3-point line. He did everything you want from a guard in that ball game. And, Bob Knight,
that's big.
Yeah. And, Bob Knight used to say, I don't have a point guard. I have guards. They all have to do the same thing. They have to be able to do what I ask them to do. And in this particular contest, they did that. Gabe Cupps, to me, is one of the best freshman defenders in the country. I mean, this guy keeps people in front of him. He doesn't make it easy for them. Look what he did against Elijah Hawkins in the game against Minnesota. That kid's been playing his best basketball of the season. I'm talking about Hawkins now. Up until the last 6 or 7 ball games, he's been playing his best basketball. And I thought Gabe Cupps did a phenomenal job on defensing that guy. Now, Gabe's not been an offensive factor so far this year. I think he had 11 in one ball game, but that's his best contest from an offensive standpoint as far as scoring the basketball. But if your other guys are doing what they're supposed to do, and Mackenzie Mbako has picked it up dramatically over the last 6 games, he's hitting 48% of his threes. He did more in the Minnesota game than I've ever seen him do from an offensive standpoint. He drove the basketball. He drew fouls. He didn't just take the first jump shot that was available to him. He actually, if somebody was up on him, he tried to drive around them. He tried to get to the rim. I loved what I saw out of Mackenzie in that regard. I think he's gotten better as a defensive player as well. He's not dramatically great in that department just yet, but he's gotten better. And that's what you're expecting of your freshmen. As they move along, they're going to get better as they do. And that's certainly what we've seen from him. But I think the real key in this ball game is what Indiana can do with Khalil Ware. I think Khalil Ware can be a factor in this contest. He's going to get banged around a little bit, but he's got to be able to handle that and not foul. And Mackenzie Mbako's in the same position because he has fouled too many times this year or gotten silly fouls. And these two guys are going to go up against some bigs for Purdue that are really talented. Trey Coffin-Wren is another guy that they're going to have to deal with because this guy is talented and he's a big. But I just think if Indiana plays up to their capability, especially at the defensive end of the floor, because you think about last year, Indiana won the game, both those ball games, because they did not let their guards beat them. And that's been the real struggle for this Indiana ball club so far this year. The guard play has been a little bit suspect. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. There's no question in my mind. I think Indiana will have to play the best basketball they played this season to beat Purdue. If they do, they'll have a chance to win.
Yeah, the Purdue's how their guards go still is how their success rate is, because Edey is Edey, and he's always going to be Edey. I don't think that Indiana or anybody else is really going to slow him down that much. And that's going to be interesting to see what Mike Whitson does with him. I wouldn't be surprised to see Sparks come in a lot, because there's probably going to be some fouls drawn, but also just for the bulk. Sparks, obviously the biggest guy on the team, and we've seen him come in and play well. And he loves that role, I think. He really enjoys that, but you're going to see Sparks on Edey a bit. Obviously, Malik Renew. But the thing with Malik, also, you talk about fouls. He's had a penchant sometimes for picking up fouls, and it's going to be very important for him not to get into that situation, because Indiana absolutely has to have him on the floor.
Right. And here's another thing, too. It'll be interesting to see if Khalil Ware can pull Zach Edey out from underneath the basket, because Khalil Ware can shoot the three. And he's going to shoot the three if he gets opportunities. You know that. And if he knocks a couple down, what happens there defense or from
that was my curiosity. Who's going to, for Purdue, who is going to guard Khalil Ware? I don't know that it's going to be Edey because of that. He has Matt has to know that that's going to be a potential game plan of Indiana. If they put him on Khalil, hell, he's going to go outside, and that opens up the paint for Indiana.
Right. So it will be an interesting matchup, to say the least. Purdue's proven they can be beat. They've been beat twice this year on the road against Northwestern and against Nebraska. So it's not like it's out of the question that Indiana can't win this ball game. But Indiana's going to have to play their best. There's just no question in my mind.
Yeah, Purdue has 4 guys that are averaging double figures. Zach Edey, Braden Smith at guard is averaging over 12 points a game. Fletcher Lawyer is averaging 11 points a game. So that is a big, big thing right there for Indiana. As always, that's been the key. You have to shut down the guard play of Purdue because you're going to give up some points in the middle. But one thing about Indiana, I saw a stat yesterday, Don. They are the only team, they lead the Big Ten and are the only team who gets over 50% of their points from the paint.
Well, there's no question, but the guard play is going to be critical for Purdue as well. Braden Smith is much improved over a year ago. Lawyer is Lawyer. He's a shooter, and he can knock down shots. So the defense on those 2 guys is going to be important because Braden Smith, isn't he the second leading scorer in their ball club right now? I think he is. And Lance Jones has been playing great for him. So it's going to be
the 3rd leading scorer. He's right by him. I mean, he's averaging 11 points a game.
So their guards are playing really well, and Indiana's guard play is going to be, from a defensive perspective, is going to be critical in this ball game. Xavier Johnson is our wild card in my mind right now. He's the wild card. Does he play like he did against Ohio State?
Isn't he always?
Yeah. Well, that's a given. Yeah, he is always the wild card. There's no question. But maybe if he plays up to his capability, that makes it a whole different ball game. But whether he's going to do that or not is the question, because he did not look good against Minnesota. He obviously was silly in his ball game against Rutgers. He played terrible against Nebraska. That was the first game back, and I'm going to give him a pass on that one. But this guy has not proven that he is ready to play the basketball that we think he can play, because 3 out of the 4 games he's played at this point since he came back have not been good performances.
Absolutely not. Tonight, inside Indiana men's basketball, Don Fischer will host Mike Woodson and Kurt Signetti. So make sure you tune in for that to get the first in-depth interview with the new football coach, in addition to Mike Woodson.
And don't show up at the Chop Shop because it's not a live show. And
well, you can still show up and have dinner.
Yes, you can. Well, yeah, I shouldn't say don't show up, but if you're going to come for just the show, don't come tonight because it's a tape show. And then we'll have the rest of the year.
There you go. Don Fischer, look forward to it. We'll see you tomorrow night.
Thanks for having me, Jim. Appreciate it.
You betcha. The great Don Fischer joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We've got Dustin Dopirak from Indy Star coming up next. Russell says he hasn't heard Omaha in a minute. So there you go. Little Omaha for you. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for Oh, that's right. We're on we're on the big West Coast swing.
Indeed, we're not at the coast yet. We haven't made that far.
Oh, are you in Atlanta? What's
Denver? So,
Denver. Okay.
So I get 2 days in the Mountain Time Zone. I'm flying out of here in a couple hours to Utah, Salt Lake City, and then it's Sacramento for 3 days, and then Portland, and then Phoenix.
Racking up those frequent flyer miles, baby. Gotta love it.
Yep. Hilton honors points too. Helping me out pretty good there. So
love that.
So you're in Denver. Is it like -10 plus right now?
It's negative something. It's -1, says my phone.
Okay.
So
I was just going to ask
much different where I'm at in Louisville. It's like 5 this morning here.
Yeah. No, it is cold everywhere. So I get lucky when I hit Sacramento. That's the
well, you know that global war, it's killing us.
This is part of extreme weather too. Anyway,
I've got 0 on my phone.
What's that?
I got 0 degrees on my phone.
Yeah.
Guess who's not going outside today?
Yeah, wise idea. Good call. It's really nice to have a West Coast trip this time because I don't have to drive at all.
Oh,
Very
yeah.
Not only that, what a great time to get the hell out of this.
Like I said, it's cold out here too. I mean, it was freezing in Denver yesterday.
But I mean, after Denver, it'll be better.
Yeah. Like I said, Utah's still going to be cold and snowy. It's not going to be as cold, but I presume them to get there and it's just going to be gross because they've had a cold couple of days, a really snowy couple of days. So I'm presuming I'm going to get there. I didn't forget, but I couldn't fit boots. Basically, like boots were a casualty of me deciding that I was
have to wear the boots on the
there.
plane and put the shoes in the bag.
Wasn't doing it. Just wasn't doing it. Should have. Hate wearing boots. Honestly, hate it. Really,
I get it, but here's like
that's the right move. I know it's the right move. Literally, my wife told me that, and I didn't do it. So.
A lot of times I fly Spirit, and I love to beat them on the bag thing. So
because it really is. Spirit is a game in itself. Like it really
absolutely. Is. And I love playing the game and beating their ass. I learned. They got me early on. I'm like, I got you now. I got you. I've got multiple. I wear multiple things in pockets. 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coy, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back to the frozen tundra of Bloomington. It's 0 degrees right now. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star joins us as he is on a West Coast swing following the Indiana Pacers, who, even though they are without Tyrese Halliburton, continue to win. And, man, they continue to shock. It's amazing what they continue to accomplish. This team just has an unbelievable amount of confidence. I mean, they're obviously talented, but they're young, but they are so confident, and they're just freaking winning. It's a great combination. The coach, I was in the presser when I was at the game the other night, in there. You could just tell this team is. They're just together, man. It's like they're just a big old group of friends.
Well, they are. No, I mean it's a really close group. Obviously, they lost yesterday in Denver. I mean, weren't able to take down the champion Nuggets without either Halliburton or Aaron Nesmith, who also sat out with bilateral shin soreness. And that's legit. I mean, people are going to say like that's a made up thing, but Aaron Nesmith is a warrior, and his lower legs have been killing him for a while. But no, there is a ton of connectivity among them, and Halliburton starts that, and then sort of it is truly infectious in the way it works, because I mean it's just their entire system, their entire way of playing is based on sharing the basketball. And what's really been remarkable in the games since he's been out, they have had at least 7 guys in double figures every game, and nobody has scored 20 in 3 games. Nobody has got to 20 points, and it's because the ball moves like that. So that tells you a lot. And they're defending.
They've had like 7 players in double figures, multiple games, and I'm like,
I think they've got 8 guys averaging double figures, but like without Ty, it's like also nobody has 20, and that's really wild. I mean, I think they had 40 assists or something like that on like 50 buckets against Atlanta, I think it was. I mean, just wild numbers. They're just really good at sharing the ball, and I mean they were fortunate to get Washington, Atlanta, or two of the worst defenses in the NBA flat out. And Atlanta is amazingly bad at playing defense, and that's why obviously the Pacers played a 157-152 game against them in November. And even without Halliburton, they were still able to beat him. But like they're also defending better. You know, one thing about Ty, as good as he is as an offensive player. Defense, he's got some issues. He's really good off the ball because he's got an absurd basketball IQ. I mean, he just reads everybody else's plays, knows where to be. But if you want to take it to him, you can. Obviously, skinny guy, like bodying up other NBA players is not an easy thing for him. So, I mean, Jaylen Brown in particular really hunted them when they played him, when Boston played him. You try to get him as many actions as you can and just back him down, and you can do that. And so when Halliburton's off the floor, there's not a guy that you can really do that with. And even Buddy Hield defended really good on Friday night. But they can put out Brown, Nembhard, Nesmith when he's healthy. Those guys can really guard. They're defending better overall over the last 10 games since they made a lineup switch and put Jalen Smith in the starting lineup and got bigger. And so they're defending pretty well. They're sharing the basketball. And so they're putting themselves in pretty good shape. And obviously, didn't expect them to win yesterday. Expect them to take at least another loss on this West Coast trip. They still got Sacramento and Phoenix left, as well as Portland and Utah. I think they're on the table there. Utah's a tough one tonight. Utah's really been cruising. I think they've won 5 straight and 8 out of 9, I want to say. But they have put themselves in a good position. They're playing much better basketball this year without Tyrese Halliburton than they did last year when he got hurt, had an elbow sprain. They lost 9 out of 10. It's definitely a different team this year, much more experienced, much deeper than they were last year. So they're in a lot better shape to sustain a Halliburton loss than they were a year ago.
Yeah, and Halliburton, I think, is the top vote getting guard in the Eastern Conference right now by a wide margin.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think he's up 700,000 votes in the last count.
That's Reggie Miller-esque right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you combine the fact that he's having an exceptional year with the fact that that the Pacers are hosting, and clearly Indiana fans have been motivated to make sure that he is the starter. And I think there's motivation on a lot of people's parts to make sure that happens, because I mean, he gets to be sort of the host of this thing, and he's as good a host as you can imagine because he's just got the personality for this. He's going to love this, and so I think that was an additional kind of emotional reason why I think everybody saw the injury and thought, oh, please no, not now, because both for the sake of Indianapolis hosting this thing, but also just for Ty. I think it's going to be a big deal for him to be the guy at the center of this All-Star game. And so the fact that he still gets to do that it wasn't an injury that, cost him the rest of the year is a really big deal. I mean, I think he just deserves it. And I think Indiana deserves it just to have a guy at the center of this whole thing. And it puts him in shape, I think, to recruit people, frankly. Which is something he openly wants to do, is to try to, not because he doesn't like the teammates he has now, but I mean, I think realizes that if they're going to win a title at some point, certainly not this year, but in the distance, there's going to have to be a true second scoring option, a guy that really stands out as the number 2 guy. And they've got to get, that guy somehow, whether it's, getting lucky through the draft, which is going to be harder and harder when they do win, because they're going to stop getting top 10 picks, and or through free agency or through a trade, and keep a guy who might be on an expiring contract, something like that. All of these are big things for him, and I think it's just big that he gets the opportunity that he apparently will have. It is very strongly leading towards that he will have in the All-Star game in February.
And just a cool fact of having the All-Star game in Indianapolis, you've had the Super Bowl here in Indianapolis. There's not a city that I can think of in the country that hosts the sporting events that Indianapolis does on a routine freaking basis, man. They always have some kind of major event, and they host them all well.
Yeah, they do. No, I mean, and it's, I mean, obviously the city's built for that. I mean, that's basically the whole purpose of it at this point in terms of how it's been designed. And it was kind of cool. Was it George McGinnis's, the Celebration of Life for George McGinnis, and they, there were a couple speakers there. One who's like a documentarian who had put together, Ted Green, who had put together some documentaries on the Pacers and what the ABA championships, and he also did a piece on just how Indiana got the Super Bowl in the first place. And one thing he pointed out is that obviously those Pacers gave them reason to build Market Square Arena downtown. That was sort of the beginning of them understanding what they could do in downtown. And that kind of led to them getting the Colts, which obviously, led to, you have the NCAA downtown, but just gave more of this reason that sports can be a thing for Indianapolis, and they already have the convention center and have so many of these big sort of, conventions that bring the country together, because it's a middle of the country meeting spot. That's certainly a lot more easy to navigate than Chicago is. As great a city as I think Chicago is, it's certainly a lot easier to, put a couple thousand people for a convention in Indianapolis than it is in Chicago, and you have everything downtown that you don't have to go anywhere. I mean, if you get your hotel, down there on South Street or West Street or whatever, and just right in that kind of block, you can walk for the whole week. Whatever you have to do. And so, that makes it really easy for them to host these big events that they're going to host in this one. It's going to be really cool. I think I thought it was a really cool move on their part to move All-Star Saturday night to Lucas Oil. I think certainly if you were going to get your tickets by now, you should have, but they were selling $40 tickets to that, which is trying to expand the amount of seats that they have, to make it more accessible to people. Certainly the All-Star game is a really, really tough ticket in itself. And in Gainbridge, I imagine if you're going to the game and you're not like me and you expect to have a press pass, you probably threw a lot of money down on the table. But All-Star Saturday night was at least remotely affordable. And so hopefully if you had the chance, you took advantage of that opportunity.
Yeah, looking forward to it. That should be a great time in the city of Indianapolis. But the Pacers are still rolling now. They're on a West Coast swing. Dylan is currently in Denver. Before you head off, where the next? What are the games that follow that?
So Salt Lake City, I'm on a plane out of here at 11:30 local, so that is 1:30 your time. So they're on a back-to-back. They get the Jazz tonight. Then tomorrow morning, reasonably early tomorrow morning, flying out to Sacramento. They have a couple days off in between. They have back-to-backs, but they do have 2 days off in between. So then they'll play Thursday, Friday, Sacramento, and then Portland on Friday. And then Sunday they get Phoenix. And then after that they come back and they do have a game Tuesday. So next home game is Tuesday against the Nuggets. So the champs come into town. That's a team that's really fun to watch. Nikola Jokic is insanely talented. So that's what they're looking at. And, so like I said, they've been able to weather the storm so far. Always only have the one loss again. I thought they played Denver pretty close yesterday. So that's pretty impressive.
Absolutely. And we'll see what they can do to maintain what they are doing right now. We've got to take a break. Lots more coming up. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star with us. We'll be back right after this break, brought to you by Cheryl Sizemore and Remax Realty. If you're in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore, and her 2 decades of experience could be the difference between getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl, at IndyHomePros.com. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. Lots going on right now, man.
Sure. Tons.
Indiana, Purdue on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm. Very intriguing.
How about my man, Kalen DeBoer?
How about your man, Kalen DeBoer? Are you going to maintain your radio show with him now that he's in Alabama? Or
I'm expecting, didn't mean to announce this yet, but expecting to have him on this week.
Fantastic.
Great.
That's
yeah,
really
great. That's
really
now you want to talk about, people always say, oh, it's a great get. And I just say, whatever. That's a great get.
We shouldn't say that over the show.
Well,
it's still on YouTube.
I didn't say it all.
You got close. You got
close.
You got as close as you can get.
Hey, what's that, John? What's that clip? My favorite clip?
Oh, the Alabama one?
Yeah, there's a couple of years ago, Alabama was playing, was it Oklahoma?
I'm good.
They're interviewing this lineman who's in the NFL. I don't know why I can never remember his name. But anyway, they ask him, have you ever played against a quarterback the caliber of Kyler Murray? No, I have not played against Kyler Murray. But I don't think Kyler Murray is – I'm good. And I always say it was like Nick Saban came down from heaven and grabbed him by the throat. And I was like, God, that will always be one of my favorite clips. I'm like, it was just funny as hell. It's still funny. I still love it. I still have him play that. But
it's great.
But and the tsunami of change that Kalen DeBoer caused is crazy. Not that Sarkisian and Norvell weren't going to get a raise, but both who were rumored for the Texas job, both get extensions to stay at where they are. Lance Leipold, who was rumored for the Washington job, gets an extension. Ryan Grubb, who wanted the head coaching job and was told he's not going to get it, fine. I'm going to Alabama. Of course, he's going to get a big ass raise.
Sure.
Then you got Jeff Fish from Arizona who moves to Washington. So that one deal caused a tsunami of change in college football.
That's how it works. I mean, when a job like Alabama shakes loose, it's like, okay, well, that all the pieces are on the table to move. I think Jimmy Sexton, I think, is Nick Saban's agent. I think I think he's several other of those guys' agents. He got those. He
just changed, and when
few seconds.
Okay.
Esco Real Estate for additional information, 812-583-0919, or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coy, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday. Thanks a lot for being with us. It is a cold one. I got a big fat 0 on the board. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star with us. He's out in Denver on the swing, West Coast road swing for the Pacers, and it is not exactly a warm day in Denver either. But at least you could, if you had the time, which you do not, you can jump on skis, but you got to jump on another plane. Lots going on in the world of football, in the world of sports, Dustin. Of course, nothing.
Playoff weekend was wild. Is wild.
Go down to a point. You got Detroit winning a playoff game. You have Green Bay just winning,
annihilating Dallas. Dallas.
I saw a stat. They were down 20. Was it 27-0 at the half?
I think that's what it was. Yeah, and we got done with the game, and I saw the score, and it was like, what?
That was the biggest.
It might have been 27-7. Dallas might have had 7.
They did score. That's right. They did score that touchdown, because right before that, they flashed a stat up that would have been, and it still probably might have been after the touchdown, but was the biggest home deficit for the Cowboys since 1969.
It's incredible.
That was wild, but you've got some fun stuff going on in the NFL. That, of course, a coaching carousel in college football. Kalen DeBoer, the former Indiana offensive coordinator, is now the head coach at Alabama. But forget that. 10 years ago, this dude was coaching in the NAIA level. Just 10 years ago, he was an NAIA coach. And I guarantee you there has never been a coach that has risen from the NAIA to the pinnacle of sports in that period. And it's wild, but deserving. I think they got the exact right guy, because you're replacing a legend. And that is nearly an impossible job, but they got the right guy, because Kalen DeBoer, his personality is just, he's kind of tunnel vision. His personality is great. You can tell that from his appearances on the show here. He is just a very down-to-earth guy. He doesn't get rattled by the outside noise, and that's a key. That's a gigantic key to his success, other than his massive intelligence.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's just exceptional football coach, and like you said, I mean, just incredible just to see the whole list of jobs that have taken him up to here. You're talking about, NAIA, but then it's Southern Illinois, and then it's Eastern Michigan. And, then I think it's Fresno State, and then it's Indiana, and then it's back to Fresno State, and then it's Washington. I think, I don't know if I'm skipping any steps, but I mean, the bottom line is you're not talking about a scenario where this guy had, where there was a huge, not elevation, but I mean, like he just did so well at every job that he was able to
won. He just wins. Google him.
Yeah, I mean just again, like the record is incredible, but not even just the record, just what you even dig down deeper into the stats in terms of how much better he's made players and teams and offenses and everything. I mean, just it's really remarkable, and certainly, kudos really, I guess, to Tom Allen in the past for saying, I need this guy. Indiana, get me this money. I need to find a way to hire this man. Knew they couldn't keep him when he was going to get a head coaching job, but was able to get him at least for a year, certainly to get that offense rolling for what it was, get them into the Gator Bowl. And go from there. And so just and cool that he had a stop in Bloomington. I think it's cool that a bunch of people. I didn't get to. I think I only got to talk to him once because I was at the Athletic then and only covering basketball. But obviously certainly a bunch of people in Bloomington got to kind of see him on the way up and see what made him a great coach. And so that's a pretty cool deal. But just a remarkable rise for the guy, and it tells you just obviously the amount of perseverance you got to have that you can be in some of these jobs in your 30s or whatever, and still if you work hard enough and you care enough about it, and you can innovate, then you can find yourself at the top of the profession in not too long. It's really an amazing rise.
Absolutely, and very, very deserving, and just fun. It's just going to be a blast now to watch that from afar. Unfortunately, we thought we was going to see him in Bloomington next year, Washington on the Indiana schedule, but that will not be the case, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that changes Indiana's potential fortunes against Washington, because that changes everything. They're not going to have Penix. They're not going to have Roma Dunze. They're not going to have Ryan Grubb, who wanted the head coaching job at Washington, and they turned him down. They basically just told him, you're not going to get the job. We're going to go elsewhere.
Jed Fish is a good hire, though. Arizona surprised me. That was a good team this year for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone took a head back when they gave Washington such a rough run. But I'm like, dude, Arizona's a little tougher than you think. Then all of a sudden, boom! I think they won 7 games in a row, including beating Oklahoma. I think in a bowl game. But that's a hell of a run. So, and they were playing in the toughest conference in the country. On top of that, their schedule was immense.
The toughest league in the country that no longer exists. Just absolutely incredible that's what's happened in this sport. But good hires over there. I mean, not gonna sleep on Washington. Not gonna presume that they fall away. Certainly presume that they're gonna fall off. Certainly with losing a great coach, and certainly was losing Penix, who was playing at Heisman Trophy caliber, at a Heisman Trophy caliber clip. But they're still gonna be all right. They're gonna come into the Big Ten, and they're not gonna be an easy out. That's for sure.
Tomorrow night, Indiana basketball hosts Purdue, and they're an opportunity to get a signature win because they do not have one. It's also going to be a litmus test of sorts to see where this team really is, because this is going to be a home game against an elite team, and Indiana has to, at some point, they've got to beat somebody of substance to get into the NCAA tournament and to maintain the run in the Big Ten Conference, because after this game, they play Illinois, they play Wisconsin, and it's not going to be an easy run. You have got to get a win someplace. I just watched Maryland beat Illinois on the road yesterday. That's the first big road win by anybody in the Big Ten this year. I think the top 7 teams were like 18-0. They were undefeated at home. That was the first home loss by a top 7 Big Ten team yesterday, and it comes from a team who is the worst on the road in the Big Ten.
Yeah, it's wild. It is a weird league this year, that's for sure. And it's just been lots of ups and downs, teams that are rough on the road. But yeah, I mean, certainly Purdue is the toughest team you can get, and that can dramatically help them if they can pull that off. Certainly the net rankings are still a little bit wonky, but they need some quad ones. They need to get some quad ones. You're not too far. It's January 15th. Before you know it, it's going to be the middle of February, and you're going to be like, okay, whoa, shoot. Did you get in? Do you have enough? Is there enough on this resume to give you a fighting chance when it comes to Selection Sunday if you don't win the whole tournament? So this one's a big one. I think the next couple after that are really big too. Obviously they get Wisconsin on the road on Friday, Illinois on January 27th. I think that's a gettable game now. Obviously, I don't presume Terrence Shannon is going to be out of his legal woes by then. That's a certainly kind way of putting that. But it's got to be now. It's got to be the next couple of weeks. They've got to get some of these games, and a bunch of them. I mean, one's not going to be enough. They need a lot. It's not just one signature win. They need a bunch of wins that get their computer rankings right and, put them in a position where they're at least being looked at as being on the bubble. So these are big. But yeah, I mean, Tuesday's still big. Certainly you got to at least be competitive in this game because it's your rival. And if you get just crushed, then that looks bad. But obviously they certainly played above what I thought was their level several times over the last couple of years and been able to take down Purdue. It's still a lot of the same guys, but obviously, Indiana doesn't have the same guys. They don't have Trace Jackson Davis to, kind of even try to even out with Zach Edey, even though Edey generally won those matchups. Trace going against him is a more, kind of level opponent. Certainly Race Thompson as well, those kind of guys. They need a huge game from Kelaware. They need a huge game from Malik Renew. They need their point guards, their guards to play above the level that they have, and not, Johnson and Galloway and Gabe Cupps and CJ Gunn and anybody else is going to take the floor for them has got to play really well because this Purdue team looks really good. I've been really impressed. Braden Smith's taking a leap. Lance Jones, I heard you guys talking with Don Fischer. He's, I think, really the piece that they needed to be able to defend some of the guys that have just cooked them in the tournament. Lance Jones is a guy that can keep those guys in front of him. So they have some pieces that put them in a lot better shape to be a really good tournament team. So if Indiana can make it a game, that's one that's if you can beat Purdue, that's a win that keeps on giving because Purdue's going to be in really good shape at the end. They're probably going to be a 1 seed. So if you can get one of the two against them and have that on your resume, that's going to carry you a long way when it comes to the net rankings. That's going to look great just on Selection Sunday. The committee's going to like. It could be really, really helpful if you can pull it off, but it's not going to be easy to do.
Well, Purdue is going to be pissed off because they're coming into this game having been beaten by Indiana twice in a row when they probably shouldn't have lost either game. But not only did they lose two, they lost at home last year. So they're looking for revenge with basically the same team. But they have a team that is averaging over 30 points a game from three different guards, all three. And it's a very balanced attack. Braden Smith is averaging 12 a game. Lance Jones is averaging 11 a game. Is that the only transfer that came in?
I think so. I don't know if they had another one, but I mean, he's a big time transfer. What a great piece that was added. I mean, you talk about just perfectly adding a piece. You added a guy who's averaging double figures from the guard spot, along with Braden Smith also. All three of those guys averaging double figures at the guard spot. That's going to be a day. Indiana's going to have to defend well. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's funny because when you talked about Painter, the game seems so simple because he's able to kind of explain it in such common sense terms, and it's just obvious. They needed a guy just like Lance Jones. They needed a guy a two-way guard who could keep guys in front of him and score. Any points they were going to get from him was a bonus, but they were getting cooked by the same kind of guy over and over again, and that's why they keep losing these games. Why they lost to St. Peter's, why they lost to Fairleigh Dickinson, and it took them a while to figure it out. That's one serious issue, and you end up taking a historic loss and having a couple teams that were really good get stopped, in the tournament earlier than they should have, because they weren't able to stop these guys. But Lance Jones is basically if you could put Lance Jones on the last two teams, they're in a different place. It does not end like that. You're not getting beat by, two tiny schools out of the MAC or the NEC or whatever. He's just he is the obvious puzzle piece that fits exactly where you need him. And so it's needed a guy who could defend and score a little bit. Got a guy who could defend and score a little bit. Didn't have to get a huge name. Just got a dude that could do the exact job that you need him to do. And so they're in much better shape for that. I mean, like you said, there was a reason why they got crushed last year. They didn't have a guy who could guard Jalen Hood-Schifino. I mean, Hood-Schifino just owned them, and he was so clearly the best guard on the floor that it wasn't even close. And obviously, Indiana loses that guy. Purdue gains a guy who could have defended that guy, and that I think dramatically reshapes the balance of power just between that. Just in the rivalry. I mean, they're just in much better shape for this. And so again, Indiana needs to get guys step up and play at a higher level than they have.
And that's kind of a knock on Indiana because that's exactly what they did not do in the offseason. They did
I disagree. I mean, they had to get a lot. I mean, Kel'el Ware is what they desperately.
Well, no, they did that, but they still needed a guard, another guard desperately that they just did not get.
There was a presumption. I think there was a presumption that Xavier Johnson was going to be Xavier Johnson the last 2 months of 2021-22. I think that was presumed, and that probably wasn't the best math there. They just presumed. He was exceptional down the stretch of that season to get them in the tournament. As good as Trace was, X was the clear second guy, and operating at a really, really high level down the stretch there. And I think there was a presumption that they were going to get that guy back, and that hasn't necessarily been the case all the time.
Yeah, and I cannot put this in the category of a must-win game because of who it's against, number one. And but
it could go
when you have Illinois and Wisconsin after that, this could be a bad 3-game stretch for Indiana. If they can pull one of those out, that's going to be success to me because 2 of those games are on the road. But we did just see Illinois take the first loss by a top 7 team in the Big Ten as they get beat by Maryland, who is the worst road team in the Big Ten.
Yep. It's wild. It's wild. But yeah, Illinois is without their best player. So, and they're going to be unless something changes with that particular circumstance. And I don't know why it would. They're gettable, and you better get them. You better get them. You have the opportunity. I mean, they obviously still have other players, but when a team like that is missing their best guy, you better get them. And so that's, I think, the position Indiana is in, where if it's going to be really, really hard to beat Purdue. It's going to be really hard. So I think you like I said, you have to get at least one of 2 of Wisconsin and Illinois, and getting both of them would really go a long way too.
And in that Maryland-Illinois game, Illinois, although they were home, I think they were outscored in the paint 50-20 something. It was like 50. It was a wide margin. They only scored 20 something points in the paint. That's Indiana's game. I mentioned it to Don. I saw a stat yesterday. Indiana, it not only leads the Big Ten, they are the only team that gets over 50% of their points from the paint. It's like 51.7%. Everyone else is in the 40% and below. So that's their game. And if Maryland had that kind of success against Illinois in the paint, that should absolutely give Indiana the opportunity to do that, even though I know that is a game in front of us. But just looking at what you have to do, Purdue is a mixed bag. They can score inside or out. As I've said, they've got 3 guards that are scoring in double figures, and you've got Zach Edey.
Yeah. And just there's that other side note, the 7'3", 300-pound guy who they just throw in the middle there, who's humongous, and is the defending National Player of the Year. Yeah, he's kind of an important deal coming off of 30. Do you have 30 and 20 against Penn State?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just an unbelievable force. Obviously, Kel'el Ware has had a pretty solid season, but Kel'el Ware, I don't know if he knows what he's in for. I mean, geez, it's just
Well, can he get Edey to come out of the paint? That's going to be the key. Well, I don't see Purdue. I don't see Matt Painter doing that. I'm like, why? Do not take him out of the paint. Switch off.
Let Kel'el Ware take his threes. I mean, if you're Purdue, your basic thought is let him take his threes. Keep Edey as close to the bucket as you can keep him. I mean, for one thing, you can switch. you can switch. I mean, if you have to keep Edie on, fade Edie back and put him on renew, let somebody else go chase him around. If Ware's taking top of the key threes, drop Edie, on the pick guys, switch on the ball handler, switch Edie out, and have a guard go, just try to somewhat contest Ware. And you're in good shape. I mean, Ware's obviously going to hit some, but you can live with that, I think, and ultimately just take full advantage of your huge dude.
What's up next for you, brother? I know that you're flying out. Where are you flying to? I forgot.
It's Salt Lake City tonight, and then it's 3 days in Sacramento, and then it's Portland, and then it's Phoenix. So, yeah, the wide range of temperatures is going to be pretty drastic. It's going to be moderate in Sacramento, presumably rainy in Portland because it always is, and then the desert on Saturday. So
you want to talk about a packing nightmare?
Oh yeah, no, I failed miserably. Didn't bring boots.
But my God, it's hard, dude. I mean,
it's hard. No, I managed to swing it all in a carry-on, and so that's pretty. Proud of myself on one hand, but I'm going to be a wreck by Monday. It's not going to be
man after my own heart.
Yeah, so it's going to be
Dustin Dopirak, the Indy Star. Make sure you are giving him a follow, be a subscriber, keep local papers alive. Appreciate you, brother. Safe travels.
Appreciate you, Jim. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Up next, we've got Greg Rakestraw from the Indiana Sports Network. We'll be back with all that and more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Formerly, I said Indiana Sports Network like an idiot.
Morning, Greg. Can you hear us?
I got you.
All right.
You're on the road already.
What's that?
On the road already?
Yeah, I'll be stopped here in a second. As soon as you come back on the air, I'll pull off to the side so I'll get my camera on and stop being mobile.
Cool. All right, you got about 2.5 minutes.
Perfect. That might just get me home.
Ha! Damn, you're out already? She whiz. In this weather?
Oh, yeah.
Holy crap.
So the kids don't have school today, but my son has therapy today. So that's what threw me off. I'm like, all right, hop on the camera, take my daughter to school, then get Jack off to therapy. Daughter is out with my in-laws. We'll pick her up this afternoon for a 3-day weekend. And so I'm just getting everything ready. I look down, it's 9:10. I'm like, crap. So
how was your weekend?
it was good. Saturday was busy. Sunday was not.
That's
yours?
Always a good thing. Same. Let's see. When did we have that game? I can't even remember things. It was a great weekend, actually. I spent Saturday with my daughter. We finally got to do Christmas because of our schedule's been so wacky. So I went bowling. She kicked my ass in bowling. The first game, I haven't bowled in 15 years, and it's been a while for her. But her first ball guts it, strike, and I'm like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me!" And she's left-handed, and she's just the whole time she just throwing them right down the middle. And I'm like, "You sure you're not bowling at Ole Miss and not studying?"
Right.
It was funny. But yeah, bowling's a humbling game. When I bowled in a league when I was a kid, but man, I haven't bowled in like 15 years, and my first ball was a gutter ball. That's humbling.
I'm the proof that all fat guys can't bowl, so I understand your pain.
Yeah, I'd had him take the rails down when we first got there. I should have had him put them back up.
All right, here we go, guys. 30 seconds. I'll go ahead and pull us back in from break.
Vehicle? Well, nobody beats the prices and selection of Andy Moore Honda in Bloomington. Right now, get a brand new Honda with no payments for 90 days. That's right, 2023 and 2024 Honda Pilots, HRVs, CRVs, Honda Ridgelines, payment-free for 90 days. Or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville and Evansville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday. Hope we're heating it up a little bit for you, but we've got Greg Rakestraw to do that from the ISC Sports Network. How are you, sir? How was your weekend? Greg is kind of muted, I think, right now. We'll get him lined out here in a second as he is finishing. He was traveling, so we'll get him on here in just a second. But over the weekend, of course, Lawrence North wins the Marion County tournament. They bucking to be the best team in the state. Little, not dispute, but different people think, is it Lawrence North? Is it Fischer's? Both having a good season right now. Lawrence North has stayed unbeaten, and they're number one in the Fab 15 of Kyle Nedrip from the Indy Star. So it's a battle that's going to be figured out. Greg joining us now there. How are you, sir? How was your weekend?
My weekend was good. Obviously, I had hoped to be a little bit busier, which, I'm the crazy mother that wants to be busy at all times. But obviously, I'd hoped that it would be a Colts-filled weekend, and it wasn't. But it also means I get a little extra time with my family, which is not exactly a bad thing. So high school hoops Saturday night, had Carmel and Brownstown Central. You referenced Lawrence North. I saw them on Friday night, and how they played Friday night is very similar to how they played Saturday night. And frankly, how they have played all year to this point. Had IUPUI in the afternoon, but a day without talking professionally yesterday, which is probably a good thing for everybody involved.
Who's the best team, Lawrence North or Fischer's?
We're going to find out February 13th because that's when that's.
I'm going to write that down. February 13th.
Correct. February 13th is when those two teams are going to play. And they're clearly 1-2. Westfield's undefeated right behind them. Westfield doesn't play Lawrence North. Obviously, that's a conference foe from Fischer, so those guys will see each other. But both those teams have been tremendous. And I just kind of had the feeling going into the Marion County tournament, Jim, that LN was about 10 to 15 points better than everybody that would be in the county tournament. The other two best teams in Marion County with LN are Attucks and Cathedral, which are the 1 and 2 seeds in the city tournament, which starts this week, and they're in the same sectional. And so you've got two crazy loaded sectionals. Sectional 8 has Fisher's, Westfield, Noblesville. Sectional 10 has Attucks, LN, Cathedral, which means that late February, early March is going to be a lot of fun around here.
The number 4 play on Sports Center's play was of the week from Friday happened at the end of the third quarter of the Lawrence North game over North Central.
That's correct. That's our coverage you saw at ISC Sports Network. So we've been doing this long enough now, Jim, where we kind of know the tricks and the tools, try to get some of our top plays on Sports Center. Frankly, we sent him another one on Saturday night. Kobe Bowles had a dunk that was just ferocious. And Kobe, don't let the hair fool you. He's about 6 foot tall. The hair is about 6'2", 6'3". But lefty 2-guard. And we are lucky that we put our GoPro up on one rim at Southport, and it was the rim that Kobe threw it down on. So we didn't have the rim cam version of the alley-oop dunk. But the play you're referring to, Davion Hampton throws an alley-oop on a fast break, goes between his legs, and leaves it for Xavier Robinson, who is obviously LN's top recruit of that bunch. And we have got we've gotten the Wildcats on Sports Center top 10 a few times. Star receiver Donovan McCulley now for IU hit a half-court shot against Fischer's of all teams in December of 2020. That was a top 10 play. Jayla Smith, who now plays at Purdue, on a ridiculous play with a second left to go on a length of the floor baseline out of bounds play. She lets it bounce, catches, shoots, and within 1 second and scores, send the game against Ayanna Patterson Homestead to overtime. That was a number 1 play back in January of 2021. And now this one got to number 4 on Friday night.
A big question in the Indy Star. Kyle Nedrip, of course, does a great job there. But he conducted an anonymous survey of high school coaches, and 25 out of the 70 responses mentioned a shot clock as a change that they would make. That's something that's been talked about for the last couple of years. There were only 4 that said no shot clock, and Kansas has implemented this. This is something that I think we're heading towards in high school basketball, which I think that it should have to keep up with the rest of the basketball world. At college you have it, and from there on, of course, any level has it. But what are your thoughts on that change taking place if it were to happen?
Let me give you a couple of reasons why I don't think it will. And if you go to any of the larger schools, you see a shot clock above the backboard, just because that is really a great way to be able to kind of show the time for the guys that are playing, and of course girls as well. And when you're buying a scoreboard system, usually it comes with it at this point. So that infrastructure is there. But again, that's at the larger schools. That's not necessarily the case at the smaller schools. So you are asking athletic departments that are already strapped for cash, hey, go buy this new gear because of this rule change that we're going to have. Secondarily, now you've got to find 400 people that are qualified to run shot clocks at high school basketball games. Now you got to pay more people that are going to be there on the sidelines. And in some places, show me room on the scorer's table to fit them in. Good luck with that. And to be blunt, I don't care what other states are doing. And for as much as I'll reference if a player is going to go on and play any level of college basketball during a broadcast, it's not high school basketball's job to get kids ready for college basketball. Largely, you've got AAU for that. So if they go to it,
and actually, what's the percentage of players that make it to college, to be honest with you, from high school?
Probably in this state, 2 or 3%, and nationally it's less than that. But probably in this state it's a little bit more. So what I would say is this: if they go to it, I'm not terribly opposed to it, but I have reasons as to why. And to also be fair, you're talking about 3 or 4 possessions a game that I think get affected by having a shot clock. You're talking about usually end of quarter scenarios. Where, and you even get this with teams in this area that play a more high tempo. They'll put the ball in their hip and they'll hold it for 45 seconds and they'll make you come out and get them, at the end of the quarter. Or you'll have a team like Carmel. And again, I had Carmel and Brownstown Central on Saturday night, and they have always run longer possessions and been very disciplined. I don't think we need it. I don't think it's the end of the world if it happens. But again, it's more than just, hey, this is a rule that would help out basketball. No, there's a lot of financial issues that come along with this as well, which is what I think has slowed it down to get to this point.
And like you mentioned, the biggest point, it's not really going to affect because there are very few games that are dependent upon shots not getting put up. I mean, these guys, they're trying to score. They want to score. The goal is to score. That's how you win games, with more points you have.
And frankly, because of whatever happens at the NBA level, eventually gets to college, eventually gets to the high school level. And you can say, well, shot clock is a sign of that. I would say this, because the game is so 3 dominant and pace and space dominant, everybody plays at a faster tempo than they used to. So, Jim, I think this is very equivalent to the hubbub that we had during the offseason of, oh my goodness, the 1-and-1 is going away. Everybody gets 2 shots. Well, here we are in January. And do I think that's had a major impact on games that I have called? No, Jim, I haven't. So again, I think it's something that it's not the end of the world if it happens. But again, I don't see this pressing need. I don't feel the game is fundamentally flawed in this state as it is currently structured.
Sean asked thoughts on this girls' game, 103-6, and the Tipton Tornadoes. It's not really their name, but how in the hell does that happen?
It's a good question, and I I'm aware of the score, and I think there's a backstory there. And I know that there was also an attempt to try to get a Hamilton Heights player a scoring record, whether it's in that game or the overall scoring record for the program. Those are rival schools. Tipton has been really good. They are the opposite this year. They are really bad. I'm not sure anything justifies 103-6. I think there was some pressing that was going on, I think, into the fourth quarter at that point. So I'm not sure anything justifies that, but I believe from the Hamilton Heights perspective, there's a little bit of a backstory there. And again, it's two teams that are rivals, but it's frankly something that shouldn't happen, and that I'll be digging into a bit more over the next few days.
Yeah, we'll be looking forward to talking about that, because that's especially in high school. I think that's embarrassing for the team that did it, to be honest with you, depending on if they're pressing in the fourth quarter of it in a game like that. It's like being up 45 points in a football game and throwing on every damn down, especially when you get down to the goal line with no time. But it is what it is. And like you said, there's usually always a backstory and a reason why. What is up next for you?
So what's up next for me is I've got the top girls team in the state tomorrow night, Hamilton Southeastern against Lawrence North. LN is number 9. They just lost to number 2, LC, on Thursday nights. Looking forward to seeing that. Two teams that obviously that is a potential state finals preview. Obviously, it could be HSE and LC. Frankly, in both boys and girls basketball, it seems a lot of the really good teams this year are located right next to each other. HSE and Lawrence North are neighboring school districts, just as Fishers and LN are, because of the county line that goes between them. They go in opposite directions in terms of the state tournament. So looking forward to having that one on Tuesday. On Friday night, it's Pike and Carmel, with both teams being a little bit down for this year. And then on Saturday night, get to see Westfield. And we haven't had Westfield and ISC since they beat Kokomo to start the season. Again, Westfield enters the week undefeated as well, led by Trey Buchanan, the book kid that has come in and given them a more physical presence down low. This is a Westfield program that, as of 2 years ago, had never won a boys basketball sectional in any classification, single class, smaller classes, 4A, etc. Then they have Mr. Basketball, and now they got an undefeated team into January with largely a completely different cast of characters. So busy week of high school basketball. And then, Jim, probably the event that I'll do that has the most attention statewide would be the girls pairing show. Is Sunday afternoon at 5:00. And yes, we have already gotten to the time of the year.
I was just getting ready to say, I cannot believe we're already there. That's crazy.
That happens in girls basketball every year. Obviously, with the seasons being staggered, you get to the fact of, Jim, we are down to 2 weeks left to go in the girls basketball regular season. The postseason starts 2 weeks from tomorrow night. So we are at that time of year already.
Craziness, but men's basketball rolling on. You've got obviously Floyd Badunga. This is the 25 class stronger than the 24 class?
Yes. And this is, and again, it's not a knock to the kids that are seniors. And again, you've got one notable absence of this group in Cannon Catchings that elected to exit Brownsburg and go the prep school overtime elite route. But it 1 through 15, 1 through 20, it's not the depth that we would normally have. A line for that would be maybe on the Indiana All-Star teams, you would occasionally see an NAIA player, a Division II player. You may see 3 or 4 of them this year. It's just not a deep senior class. Now, on the flip side, the junior class is ridiculously talented, and that is without counting Jalen Harrelson, who, while he is in state, is no longer playing at an IHSAA school as he plays at La Lumiere. But of the variety of talented juniors you've got, obviously, Sisley comes to mind, Xavier Robinson comes to mind. I'm ignoring several great players. In the senior class, I really think Floyd Badunga is Mr. Basketball. Obviously, folks in Southern Indiana will say, hey, what about Jack Benner? And again, he was great, even though I don't think he's playing 100%. But he had 35 points in the win against Carmel on Saturday night. He'll be a kid that will get time at Purdue at some point in time. in his days. They're not sure if that's next year or not. We'll kind of see how it plays out. But I think it's kind of a two-man race for Mr. Basketball with I think, a clear leader. But yes, the junior class is significantly deeper than this senior class is.
And something else that stands out to me is that Indiana has not been able or has not recruited the guys from this state, where both Kanan Catchings and Jock Benter that we just mentioned both headed to Purdue, a team that is built on Indiana talent, probably 80% of the roster, and that is not an exaggeration, kids from Indiana. Now, next year, Indiana is chasing Trent Sisley. They're chasing Jalen Harrelson, two of the top players in that junior class, whom they both want. But it has been that'll be the fourth year of this of Coach Woodson's tenure. So to go that long and not be able to tap into this state's talent, a little bit surprising to me.
And that's okay, Jim, if you're winning. And Indiana's not winning the level in which they should. And so nobody criticizes you for not, recruiting the local talent as long as you're putting significant W's up on the board. And you'll see some. Again, Friday night was solid. Never complain about a conference win. And let's face it, the highest level Indiana recruit that is currently on the IU roster, Trey Galloway, yes, but probably CJ Gunn's a little more highly, thought of. And obviously he was recruited by the previous staff and then elected to stay when Mike came on board, and CJ's not seeing that much of the floor. So yeah.
Nor is Mr. Basketball Anthony Leal.
That's a different story. And again, that's not to knock Anthony, but that's
right, I get it.
Again, that was a year in 2020 where there was some really good talent in the state. Nigel Pack, Dre Davis, Perkins that went to Iowa, but that class is probably somewhere similar to this class. And Anthony was always. I don't think he goes to IU if he is not from Bloomington, Indiana. Just to be blunt about it.
And not playing on Bloomington South, who had I'll just call a non-Indianapolis schedule.
True, but I would say this, that is the great unknown. They and LN would have seen each other in the semi-state round, and I think it would have been a great game. You're right. LN plays a tougher schedule. That's just the nature of geography and how that is handled. They played the next year, and it was a closer game. A lot of people thought it was going to be, with LN winning in the semi-state. So that's the thing about 2020, Jim. There's a lot of great unknowns. We'll never know how that would have played out. Greg
Rakestraw from Indiana or ISC Sports Network. Make sure you tune into that. All kinds of different content there. Whether it's high school, you guys cover everything. Some small college, Indiana small college, just the stuff that you don't get to see. That's the best thing about ISC, is it gives you a great litany of programs. Greg, I can't thank you enough, brother. Great to see you. Stay warm.
Buddy. Will do.
More coming here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Okay.
Good segment.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what's this segment go to? 1040?
Yeah, 40. I've got a couple.
Could have kept Greg on a little bit.
I actually,
you have sound?
Yeah, I kind of forgot that was forgetting.
You have
about
sound?
40. But yeah, I do have a couple of clips. I have a Woody clip from
Friday or last week.
Yeah, excuse me. Yes, and then same from Mackenzie and Baco.
What does Woody talk about?
Woody, let me see. I'm trying to think real quick. I don't want to play it over the air by accident. Here, I'm going to remove myself and just make sure I've got the right thing. Hold on. All right, so they're both about Mackenzie Mbako. Woodson's asked about Mbako's performance, and then Mbako himself is asked about his own performance. Excuse me.
Musicians like me, I knew it was important to build my credit to set my business up right. I heard about the
All right, here we go.
For high-quality meats, bakery items, and now fresh seafood. Chop Shop Market and Table has the largest selection of in-house made products around and everything you need to make a gourmet meal at home. Or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection.
You're muted, Jim.
In
Make sure you
Chop
unmute
Shop
yourself.
Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday, middle of January. It's the 15th. It is freaking cold. It's 0 degrees here in Bloomington. And I'm sure there are many of you that are listening up north, where it is mucho colder. Just curious, where is my weather app? Gather a look to see what is going on. It's going, and today the high 12 degrees. It's getting all the it's gonna, and then tomorrow, a sultry 12 degrees for a high. This weather's wacky. Then it goes up to 30 with a low of 23. Although the 2 days before single digits, the next day 28, 15, dropping back down, 18, 4 for a low, 21 degrees, 6 for a low. This weather is just up and down wacky. Forget about
But you have nearly an entire week without getting above the 32 mark.
Oh, absolutely. There is an entire week without getting above the 32 mark. Yeah.
I feel like we haven't had weeks like that in a while. Maybe I'm just
global warming, man.
But
Oh, hey, it's up to 1 degrees now. So, breaking news. It's up a degree. Mike Woodson, after the Minnesota game, a win for Indiana, in which the team looked much, much better. But also, I noticed that now minus Xavier Johnson was not in the starting lineup. Obviously, that was a disciplinary action. Gabe Cupps moved into that role. I'm wondering, does that continue? I think that was beneficial for Indiana. They played very well, but they also, if you look at the statistics, they played better with Xavier Johnson on the bench. And I'm not someone who says that Indiana needs to play without him. I don't think you can win without him. Whether he might have a bad game here and there, but overall, you have to have him because of what you have on the roster. You don't have much else. But the truth of the matter is, at least in that game, they were better with him on the bench. Now you have to have people come in. Woodson has taught the substitution things with him all year. But I noticed the first game after he was questioned about it again and got prickly about it, but the very next game, which was Minnesota, it was completely different. He did not do the hockey lineup switching. He did not bring 4 guys in at once. Not at any point were there more than 3 reserves on the floor at the same time, which is different than having 4 and up to 5 reserves on the floor at the same time, which he has done multiple times in games. Did not do that immediately after all of the noise. So it's hard to believe that that noise did not seep into Cook Hall. And it was successful. But again, it was against Minnesota, not exactly one of the most formidable teams in the conference. It will be I'm wondering how tomorrow goes. Different game, different situation, different team, different things you have to worry about. Purdue brings all kinds of problems, starting with Mount Edie in the middle, but you've got 3 guards, I've talked about it, that are averaging double figures. That is going to give Indiana the biggest challenge. You have got to defend the outside, because if they have any success outside, that is only going to make the interior success that much easier. Indiana, on the other hand, what can they do to deal with Mount Edie? You're not going to stop him, as Dan Patrick would always say. You can't stop him. You can only hope to contain him. But the guards, that is where the difference in winning and losing that game is probably going to come down. Can Indiana defend and slow down how Purdue's guards have played? Here's Mike Woodson after the Minnesota game.
I thought he was aggressive right from the start. I thought our whole team was aggressive on both ends of the floor. He got some good looks early that he made. I ran a couple of plays for him that he was able to knock shots down, and the way they double team, it opened him up on the backside as well to get shots.
That was in reference to Mackenzie Mbako, who was Indiana's leading scorer in the win. He had 19 points, 6 of 12 shooting. Great night. I mean, he's hitting 50% there. He hit 50% at the behind the arc. He was 5 of 7 at the free throw line, which is okay, but it's not Mackenzie Mbako normally. He's been pretty good there. He was followed by Kalel Ware, who had 17 points on 6 of 11 shooting, 2 of 2 behind the arc, 3 of 5 at the free throw line, 14 rebounds though. He had 17 and 14 in that game. So Mackenzie Mbako also with a couple of assists. Gabe Cupps, 0 points, 0 for 5 shooting, 0 for 1 at the free throw line. He does have 4 rebounds and an assist. He's generally in there mainly for defensive purposes only. How about Trey Galloway? Now, he had a night that he has to have for Indiana. This is one of Indiana's points. This is a place that helps define winning and losing for Indiana. Trey Galloway. He's their 2 guard. You have to have scoring from him. He had 10 points in that game on 4 of 5 shooting. A great night. He was 2 of 3 behind the arc. A great night. 0 for 2 at the free throw line, which is bad. He had 7 assists. Huge, big. So overall, it was a great night for Trey Galloway. The 0 for 2 at the free throw line, though, is very detrimental. You can't have that. But overall, he had a night that would help Indiana win. That's what you have to have. Xavier Johnson, different story. He had 2 points in 17 minutes of play. He took 2 shots. Anthony Walker was great off the bench. Indiana's going to have somebody else as well step up, I think, in this game against Purdue off of the bench. They're going to need that. Can CJ Gunn help out? We'll see. Can Caleb Banks come around? He has not looked he looked better to me last year, I'll be honest with you. He would always come in and just provide some kind of little spark. That hasn't been the case this year. He's looked lost most of the time he has played. Peyton Sparks, I expect to see some time. He's going to come in and put that big old booty on Mount Edie and see if he can get him moved out. But Mackenzie Mbako also spoke with the media after the game. Here's what he had to say.
It started from the tip-off. I feel like once we start the game aggressive, we can carry over onto our defense, and then defense creates offense. So just being aggressive on both sides of the floor is what created the win tonight.
Todd and Mason. Mackenzie, tell me about your defense and that quick start and how you felt maybe you had a role in that, and how do you feel like you're progressing defensively?
I feel like I started off a little bit slow because, it's a nail slot rim is a little bit different than when I learned in high school. So just being able to just grow under Coach Woodson is really good.
And a great start for Mackenzie Mbako in that game. He had a 3-point shot. He had a layup. He had a free throw. You hear, if you listen to the post-game show, you'll hear Todd Leary talk about Mackenzie Mbako needing that start to have a good game. And he did. He got exactly that. He got off to a great start, and Indiana's players are going to have to do that. This is mid-January. It's time to get rolling. So those horrible games, they have to go away. And the players have to contribute. They have to play well, and that's what you have to have, whatever it takes to win. We just saw the worst road team in the Big Ten, Maryland, go to Illinois and beat them soundly. It was not a 20-point win. They won by like 8 or 10, whatever. But it was just, I was watching that game, and Illinois just could not get back. Maryland created some separation, and Illinois could not overcome it. Playing on the road in the Big Ten is amazingly difficult, but they sure and for the worst road team to do what they did was amazing. But we shall see Indiana taking on a Purdue team that also smarting, not only from losing in Bloomington last year, which they were not happy about. They lost at home in West Lafayette. So they're going to carry 2 chips on their shoulders when they come in to play Indiana. They want to win this game badly for a couple of reasons. Not only for the revenge factor, which that's just a competitive thing, but they need to win this game. They've already lost twice. They don't want to lose a third game to right now what is a mid-level Big Ten team, because they've got a lot of games yet to play and a lot of road games yet to play. They've got to go to Northwestern. They've got to go to some places that could be tough for them. So we'll see how it turns out. It's going to be an opportunity for Indiana, like I said earlier, to get a signature win, which they do not have, and they desperately need for any hopes of making the NCAA tournament. They have got to increase their resume, because right now it is that of a middling team. I have not looked at any of the prognostications for postseason play, but I don't know if they have Indiana in them. John, I don't know if you have looked at that, but we shall certainly see.
I haven't looked at them recently. I did see one today that didn't have Indiana. It wasn't from a prominent it wasn't like a Mike DeCourcy or anything like that, or a Joe Lenardi. But if I were to look at those, it wouldn't surprise me if Indiana were not in those either. Because again, they don't have that signature win, and they've got to find a few of those. And their next opportunity tomorrow gets Purdue, if they can find a way to beat them at Assembly Hall.
Yeah, that changes things completely. Purdue right now,
3 games in a row where you have an opportunity for a signature victory. If you can find a way to beat Wisconsin on the road for the first time in a million years, it seems like, or even get a win against Illinois, who just lost to Maryland at home.
Well, I can guess who is that Indiana is not without even looking at it, because I pulled it up, and as I scroll down, it says on the bubble, the last 4 buys right now, Ohio State and Northwestern are in there. little surprising that Northwestern is in. I haven't followed them, but
I mean, they have that signature victory is really what helps them out against Purdue.
Exactly, but they're still on the last 4 buys.
Yeah.
Then you look at
last 4 buys is better than the last 4 in. Last 4 buys means you're not in the play-in game.
Well, and I'll look at the next 4 out. The next 4 out, not the first 4 out. And in that list is Indiana State, who's had a great season. So, yeah, I don't think
it's unfortunate that they play in the Missouri Valley, and I don't know if they're ever the only way Indiana State will ever get themselves out of the Missouri Valley is if they can put together enough great seasons where they can try to play, go for a bid in a better conference. But again, the likelihood of that is very low.
Well, I'm looking over right now this is not Mike DeCourcy's.
1 minute.
It is Joe Lenardi's, and I do not see Indiana listed. So there you go. This is, I don't want to call it a must win, but it's certainly whatever category is right underneath of must win, it's in it. It's no less than that just because of the importance of it. But tomorrow we'll be preparing for it as well. Of course, Mike DeCourcy will be joining us. Chronic Hoosier. Anybody else, John Boy, that we've got lined up yet?
You might hear from Casey Bartley and Mike Nizelek tomorrow as well. We'll have to see.
All right. Looking forward to that. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I am so thankful for each and every one of you. Thankful to Greg Rakestraw from the ISB Sports Network. Of course, Don Fischer, the voice of the Hoosiers. Dustin Dopirak, as well from the Indy Star. John, the producer for keeping us between the white lines. Man, oh man, I can't believe how fast this show went tomorrow. We're back to do it again, and we appreciate you. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.